Welcome back, programmers, to this new PureBasic 101 episode. This time we're talking about procedures. Okay, so let's start. A procedure is a reusable piece of code. You can pass it parameters and it can return a value. Procedures are made to improve modularity, maintainability, as well as readability. Your code just looks better with procedures. Everything is at its good place, and you can call procedures so you can reuse the code everywhere. So how do you write procedures? Yes, the syntax is right here. Procedure keyword dot type. It's optional, of course. The default type is integer. Then the name here of the procedure, opening parenthesis, you put the list of parameters, each one with its own type, and the last parameters can have a default value. We'll see that at the bottom. Within the procedure, if the procedure returns a value, you call procedure return. We'll also see that later. To call the procedure, just call its name, okay? Name, opening parenthesis, and the parameters, and you close the parenthesis. If the procedure returns a value, you can assign it to a variable. Just like this. So, let's start. First example, simple procedure, message, okay, MSG, message requester. I'm just displaying hello world. So let's uncomment this and run this. Here I'm just calling the MSG, the message procedure. Let's run it. Hello world. Perfect. First example. Second example. Well, not yet. So that's just a simple procedure, no return value, no parameters. Now parameters. You can pass simple types like numeric types or strings. An example with numeric types, here an integer, here a double, and also, well, it's not only numeric, by the way, it's all of them, text. So a string type. If I call it right here, I'm calling it, passing the parameters like this, to 3.1415926, which is pi, and I'm also passing the string pi here. Let's run this. The 2 is here, the pi is displayed. It works fine. You can pass arrays as parameters, but you need to use the keyword array. So example 3, array as the parameter. Here I have my display array procedure, and I'm using this array keyword, and I'm passing an array of integers. Okay, the array parameter is named Bob. Its type, the type of its elements is integer, and here you need to pass the number of dimensions of your array. Here the array has only one dimension. What do I do in the procedure? I'm just displaying a message requester with the list of what is in the array. If I uncomment this to show you, no, I said uncomment, like this. So I'm creating an array with 3 elements, an array of integers called table. Okay, I'm initializing first element at 3, second at 1, and then at 4, and I'm calling the method, I'm calling the procedure here, passing the table, don't forget the parenthesis here, passing the table array as the parameter. And boom, that works. You can pass the array. No, that's not what I was expecting. 314, that's the one. I forgot to comment this out. Let's run it once again. Sorry, it's right here. Let's run it once again. I'm passing 314 and I'm displaying the content of the array 314. You can also pass multi-dimension arrays. Okay, just as I said, you need to give the number, to pass the number of dimensions. So here, this display multi-array expects an array as a parameter which has 2 dimensions, and I'm just displaying a message requester with a matrix-like kind of display. Okay, and here the code is called. So I'm just going to comment this out and uncomment this. Okay, so let's review the code. Creating a 2-dimension array. With first dimension with 3 elements, second dimension with 4, and then I'm just initializing the array with a lot of values from 1 to 12, 3 times 4, and then I'm calling the procedure display multi-array again with my array and empty parentheses here. Let's run this. Look at that, the procedure is called with this multi-dimension array. Okay, let's comment this again. Next, still with parameters, you can pass lists as parameters. You need to use the list keyword. Okay, 5th example, list as a parameter. Procedure here, I called it display list. You need to use the list keyword, and then your parameter needs to be called, here it's called items. It's a list of strings, and you need to put the parentheses here like this. Once again, the procedure here is just displaying the content of the list in a message box. Let's run this. John, William, Bernard. That's the name that I've put in my list. So here, let's review the code. I'm creating a new list of strings, adding elements, John, William, and Bernard, and then I'm displaying the list. That works. Last, you can pass maps as parameters using, once again, a keyword. This time is the map keyword. Procedure display map, map items.d. Here it's a map of doubles. Okay. Each is indexed with a string, as in any map in PureBasic. So here I'm just displaying the content of my map in a message requester. Once again, let's call this. So here I'm creating a new map called prices of doubles. The prices of the bus is 21.55, etc. Prices of the train, prices of the plane. And I'm displaying here, I'm calling the display map procedure with the prices map. You do not have, when you're calling the procedure, to repeat the map keyword. It's just when you are defining the procedure. But you need the parentheses here, just like the list or just like the array. Let's run this. Exactly, the map is displayed, plane, bus, and train. We just notice here something that I haven't seen is that it's not in the same order. Okay, plane, bus, train, and bus, train, plane. Okay, that's a particularity of the map. Okay, so here, let's comment this again. So final parameter type, structures. You cannot pass a structure as a parameter directly. You cannot have a procedure with, let's say, a point and your structure type. You need to use pointers instead. So this example here, I created a small structure pt with x and y, 2 integers. If you want to pass a variable of type pt to a procedure, you need to use this star, which is a pointer to a pt structure. Then when you use inside the procedure, you can just use star a, okay? But when you're calling it, so here, that's the procedure. So here I have the structure, here I have the procedure, and then I have the code that called the procedure. I'm defining a point, a pt, a, x is 1, y is 3, and I'm calling the display point procedure. And when I'm calling it, I'm giving the address, which is a pointer, the address of A using the arrow base here, arrow base A. That's the address. The arrow base return the address of A, which is a pointer to a PT structure. So let's run this. Exactly, that calls the procedure with 1.3, the correct parameter. Okay, let's comment this out. As I said before at the beginning, the last parameters of a procedure can have a default value, which needs to be a constant, okay? So it does not apply to arrays, lists, or maps. And when you're calling it, if the last parameters are omitted, you don't call them, you don't put them in your call, then the default value will be used instead. Example, procedure devval, I have an index, parameter index, which is an integer, a name, and for the name, which is a string, I have a default value of Bob, and for the factor that is a double, I also have a default value of 3.14. In the message requester, I'm just displaying the index, colon, the name, space, the factor, whatever. And here are three ways of calling this procedure because we have two parameters. The two last parameters have a default value. You can call it three ways, just like this. Either you pass the three parameters, 1 John 2.1, okay, that's the values that are going to be used, or you can omit the last one, the 2.1, just calling 2 and Mike, and here the factor will take the 3.14 value, and finally you can call it just with 3, which is the first parameter, which does not have a default value, and here the two default values are going to be used, Bob for the name and 3.14 for the factor. If I run this, I will have 3 message requester, 1 John 2.1, 2 Mike 3.14, 3.14 is the default value, and finally 3 Bob 3.14, both Bob and 3.14 are the default values. Now return value. A procedure can return a value, and the return value can only be symbol type, okay, numeric or strings. Example, this procedure here, so the syntax is you put the type that is returned by the procedure just after the procedure keyword, procedure dot type, name of the procedure, just like before. Here square D is going to return the square root, not the square root, the square of a double parameter, which is called num. To return a value, you use the procedure return keyword. Here I'm returning num multiplied by num, which is num squared. Let's run this example here. I'm just going to comment this once again, I forgot. So this example, if I run it, it should return the square of 2.5, which is 6.25. That works. I have returned a double. Sorry, here you can also return a string. Two ways of declaring, just like a variable, you can have two ways of declaring a procedure that returns a string. You can use the $, or you can use the .s syntax. Both work. Here one is returning hello, the other world. Let's check if I call the two and concatenating hello and world. Here I'm calling return string 2 here, F5, hello world. So that works also this way. You can also return a pointer. It's a little bit advanced. You can return a pointer as an integer. Okay, so procedure, you don't put, or you can put .i or not put anything. That will do the trick, but because it's a pointer, it's not really an integer. Okay, it's pretty nice to call it without the dot type. Procedure, return PTR. Here I'm just doing a code. I'm putting the PT structure, creating a static variable, initializing x and y to 110, and then returning the address of this variable. So I'm returning a pointer. When I'm calling this here, so I'm defining this time a pointer to a PT structure. I'm calling return PTR, which is going to return the address of this variable here, which is static, so it will still exist. And then I'm just displaying the parameter, and if I run this, 110, I really got the values that were assigned to the variable here. That works. Just a quick information. Procedure return, when you call it, it exits the procedure immediately. Even if you're in a loop, anywhere you're in the procedure, if you're calling procedure return, it will exit the procedure and return the value that you're passing. So you can even call it, I did not mention it, but you can call procedure return to force the exit to a procedure, even if the procedure does not return a value. For a procedure that does not return a value, if you call procedure return, you don't pass any parameter, and it will just return, it will just exit the procedure without any return value. But it's a way of exiting the flow of the procedure. So here I have an infinite loop, repeat forever, and in my infinite loop I put procedure return, just with a string, because here it's returning a string, infinite loop broken, and after that I have a message requester not called, and you'll see that when I'm calling this procedure here, useless loop, F5, infinite loop broken. So you see that it's really calling the infinite loop broken, so that's what is returned by the useless loop procedure. And the message requester not called has not been displayed because this code here is never called, because we're returning right here. So that's a quick example. Procedure return, you can use it multiple time in a procedure. Just a quick example like this. Okay, multiple return. I have a test if select. I'm basically calling procedure return 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Okay, 4 times, and depending on the value of A, it will be called here, 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 or here. Let's try that. So here I'm passing 1, 3, and -7, which is going to be 1, 3, so 1, don't know, and 0 or negative. F5, 1, don't know, and 0 or negative. So you see, that works. Then declare. Okay, for procedure you can define or declare a procedure. Okay, define is just, as we saw in all the examples, you write the keyword procedure and end procedure. Okay, procedure, end procedure, and the procedure return. That's defining a procedure. Declaring a procedure is with the keyword declare, declare.type, the name, etc. So this is made for if you need to call a procedure that has not been defined yet. Okay, a procedure cannot be called before it is either defined or declared. So to declare a procedure, just use the declare keyword dot type, the name, parameters, just like you were defining a procedure, but you don't define the body, the code within the procedure. And then you have, when you do a declare, you can use the procedure, but the procedure has to be defined somewhere else below. So here, example 14, declare.s get name. So procedure name get name, returning a string, taking two parameters, a which is an integer and b which is a double with the default value. I'm calling the procedure right here, define text dollar equals get name, passing parameters, and I'm defining the procedure right after. The defining, so when you write where you're defining your procedure, it must have the exact same name and parameters and return type as the declaration. Okay, this and this must be exactly equal. Just the keyword is not the same. One is procedure and the other is declare, but the rest should be exactly equal, identical. So here, will it work? I'm calling the message requester. Here it's supposed to have returned something in the text dollar. This works. If I remove the declaration, I'm getting an error. The get name does not exist. It's not a function. Of course, it has not been declared or defined. Okay, so that works. Okay, so finally, the last topic. It's a really advanced topic. It's if you want to call a procedure by its name. Okay, you have a string with the name of the procedure, and you want to call the procedure having this name. Okay, you can do that with the runtime keyword. Okay, when you are using the runtime keyword, PureBasic is keeping a link between the name of the procedure. So in the example, you'll see get string, and the code of the procedure. Here, the definition of the procedure. And that way you can call the procedure by its name. Let's look at the example right here. First, I'm defining a prototype, which is a sort of template for the procedure. It tells that the procedure here must return a string and have two parameters, which are both integer and the last one with a default value. Then I can define a procedure, a runtime procedure. Here get string. It matches the prototype, okay, returning a string and having two parameters, integers and one with a default value. This procedure, actually what it does is just returning a string with a concatenation of the two parameters, okay, and that's it. Now the good stuff, calling the procedure by its name. So first you are defining a variable that is of type your prototype. So a prototype is a sort of pointer to a procedure, but whatever. You're defining here procedure name, which is of type myfunc being your prototype, okay? And to get the procedure, really, you call get runtime integer, this particular function here, this command, and you pass the name of the procedure with empty parentheses here, okay? Get string here matches the get string here. So doing that, the get runtime integer returns a pointer to the get string procedure, and you put this pointer, this prototype, in the procedure name variable, and then you can call this procedure name. Actually, you can call the procedure name. Here I'm calling it twice for the example, first with the two parameters and second with only one using the default value. So let's run this. First string 1122, which is the first call. Second 7712, 77 is here and the 12 is the default value. That works, and that's just how you call a procedure by its name. Okay, that is it for this video. It was quite a long video, very interesting. Next time we will talk about the scope of the variables, okay, static, global, protected. That will be the next episode. In the meantime, okay, give a like, comment, tell me what you think of this series, what you think of this particular episode, and also subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thank you all for watching. I will see you very soon.